As Hashem, today's daf is Masechta Chullin Daf Lamates, and we're just going to review. We'll just jump into the Gemara, but let's just review the first two lines of the Mishnah. The Mishnah said that if a Jew works for a guy, the guy owns the animal, and he shechts for the guy. So the Jew is not thinking avodah zarah. So shchitase keshera, right? That's the first line of the Mishnah, as you can see. For Rabbi Lezer, Paisel, Rabbi Lezer says, no, it's an invalid shchita. So, so the Gemara now starts off like says like this: Hani Tanoi Islay the Rabbi Lezer Rabbi Yosi. Both the Tanakama and Rabbi Eliezer agreed to Rabbi Lezer Rabbi Yosi, because really, if you think about it, who's having the bad thought? It's not the shaykhit, because is the shaykhit is the Jew. It's the owner. And the Tanya we learned in the Brisa, Amar Rabbi Lezer Rabbi Yosi, Shamati, I heard Shabala Mafaglim, that the owner could make it pigel. That means that the owner could destroy a kachim, even though he's not shechting the kaidish. Let's say the kohen is doing the avodah. If the owner has a bad thought, he can passel his carbon. So by kachim, even the owner, the one not involved in the service, can mess it up. Miu Tanakana Sava, the Tanakama holds, Isha Mina Dechashiv in. If I know that the guy thought of avodah zarah, he thought that the shechita should be for avodah zarah, and yes, Eloi, loy, or if not, not. It means because tam machshavas of goy lavodah zarah loy amrinim. We don't think that the guy is thinking for an avodah zarah. So therefore, the owner of the guy is watching his Jew shech the carbon, and we're going to assume that the guy is not thinking, oh, I'd like to make this an offering for an avodah zarah. So therefore, Tanakama holds it's a very good shechita. Rabbi Lezer holds afagav deloy shamini dechashiv. Even if you didn't hear that the goy is thinking avodah zarah, stam machshavas goy lavodah zarah amrinan. A goy is always thinking about the avodah zarah, and therefore he's the owner of the animal, and therefore he's parceling his own shechita, and therefore no Jew can benefit from that animal because it was shechted for avodah zarah. That was the two first opinions in the Mishnah. There's a third opinion in the Mishnah that says, also Rabbi Yosi is even more lenient. He says, even if I would hear that the guy said, oh, I want it for avodah zarah, and he's screaming while the Jew is shechting, the guy is saying that he wants it for avodah zarah, the Jew is doing the service. Lo yamrinan, we don't say that the owner could passel the animal. The owner cannot passel the only if you're actually doing the shechita you can passel the animal, and therefore this animal, according to Rabbi Yossi, certainly is kosher. Ika de Amri, others say that the machlek is a little different. They're arguing if we heard the guy say that he wants it to be for avodah zarah. Oh, Tanakama holds ki amrinu zeh mechashev zeh oived hanimili b'fnim. When do we say, the Tanakama will hold, when do you say that the owner can disqualify an animal by having a bad thought? Hani mili bifnim, only if it's a carbon. A carbon, a Jew who brings a carbon to the base of Migdash, and the kohen is shechting it and doing the avodah. If the Jew, the owner, thinks a bad thought, then he could destroy his carbon. Alba b'chutz, in our case, this is a non kachim type of carbon, loy, then we wouldn't say that the owner could invalidate his carbon. Chutz mipnim, we go to Lametesam and Aleph. That's where we are. Loy al alfinim. We don't learn just because an owner can think a bad thought and passel his carbon doesn't mean that an owner can invalidate his regular animal by thinking an avodah zarah thought. Also, Rabbi Lezer says, yes, that we could learn the idea from what goes on in the base of Migdash and apply it to even places where none going on in the base of Migdash, not in the base of Migdash, and say that just like he could, someone could passel his carbon by having a bad thought, the owner, so also the owner of an animal, the guy could invalidate the shechita by thinking an avodah zarah thought. Also, Rabbi Yossi says, Rabbi Yossi is the most lenient, and he says that even inside the base of Mikdash, if you're the owner of the carbon, no matter what you're thinking, it's not going to invalidate the carbon. That's it. It's only the person doing the service, the kohen, can invalidate your carbon, but not you. Now we go into a new Gemara. Itmar, we learned. Hashoichet as a behemoth, someone slaughters an animal, lizreik dama l'avodah zara, ulahaktir chelba l'avodah zara. Here, very interesting case. He shechts an animal. Okay, you're shechting an animal, and you shechted it good, but you plan to sprinkle the blood of this animal for avodah zara, ulahaktir chelba l'avodah zara, or to offer it the fats for avodah zara. But the shechita itself, you weren't thinking a bad thought, but you were just thinking that what I'm going to do with this animal. I'm going to do a service for avodah zara. So Rabbi Yossi says, psula, the animal becomes also to eat. It becomes, even if you didn't do the avodah zara yet, the animal becomes also to eat. It's like avodah zara. Rav Shimon ben Lakish says it's permitted to eat the animal. It's kosher. It's a no problem. Rabbi Yochanan, even if you didn't follow through, obviously, maybe if you followed through and maybe even if you didn't follow through, even if you did follow through, the meat will be kosher according to Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. Rabbi Yochanan Psula. Rabbi Yochanan says it's possible because mechashim avodah zara l'avodah. How does any pigel work in the base of Mikdash? When you're shechting the carbon and you're thinking that you're going to eat it chutz lizmane after it expires. So you're thinking while you're doing the shechita that let's say you're going to do the zrika chutz lizmanai. So that is, you're thinking about one service, what you're going to do wrong in the next service. So that's called mechashvim ma'avodah la'avodah. You think from one service to another service. So that passes something a carbon in Beis Hamikdash, the alfin chutz mepnim, and we're going to learn that even outside the Beis Hamikdash we apply it. That means you're thinking while you're shechting that you're going to do a sprinkling of blood to avodah zara. That's going to invalidate. That's going to totally make this carbon like an avodah zara. Rav Shlokish Amar Muteres ein mechashrin la'avodah v'zayda like amin chutz mepnim. Rav Shlokish says it's permitted, and we don't want, just because you're thinking a bad thought by the shechita, what you're going to do about the zrika does not invalidate this animal, and we don't apply things that rules that are in the Beis Hamikdash to outside the Beis Hamikdash. And they aligned themselves according to the reasoning because they had a similar machlekes. The Itmar we learned shachta lishma, if a person shechted a carbon chatas lishma, right? But lizrek dama shloi lishma, but he plans to sprinkle the blood shloi lishma. So the shechita he did it right, but he's thinking when I'm going to sprinkle the blood, I'm going to think shlomim. So Rabbi Yochanan psula, right away it's possible. Shimon ben Lakish Amar kshera. Rav Shimon ben Lakish says it's a kosher carbon. Yochanan Amar psula mechashim avodah avodah v'gamim mechshavas pigel. Just like the thought of a pigel, you're going to sprinkle chutz lizmanai, invalidates the carbon. So you're thinking that you're going to do it shloi lishma would also invalidate the carbon, because by thinking about another service can invalidate the current service that you're doing. Shimon ben Lakish Amar kshera ein mechashim avodah avodah like amin mechshavas pigel. True pigel works that way. You're shechting and you're thinking I'm going to sprinkle the blood chutz lizmanoi, but that's only by pigel, but not by any other avodah. So if you think that you're going to sprinkle the blood shloi lishma, is not going to invalidate the carbon. Utzricha, and we need the machlekes Rabbi Yochanan and Rav Shlokish to say it in both instances. The itma b'ha, if it would just say in one case, by the case of by the case of the chulin, a person thinking that avodas zara thought, right? According to Rish Lakish, it doesn't invalidate the animal, because Bahakam Rish Lakish, over there Rish Lakish says it's a kosher animal, mishum dechutz mipnim lo yalfinim. We don't apply things that are in the Beis Hamikdash for something outside the Beis Hamikdash, so it will not invalidate the animal. Avol pnim mipnim, but within the Beis Hamikdash, I'll apply. Just like pigel is mechashrim mal avoida la avoida. So also we're going to say that if you think another bad thought, let's say shloi lishma, that you're going to sprinkle shloi lishma, maybe in that case he would agree to Rabbi Yochanan that the carbon is invalid. So Resh Lakish says no, the carbon is not invalid. It only a pigel thought can passel a carbon, nothing else. If we just say the machlokes by the pigel, I would say Rabbi Yochanan. Over there, Rabbi Yochanan says it's possible. It invalidates the carbon. Alva Baha, Ema Moidele Resh Lakish. But maybe in the case of a person shechting a regular animal as thinking that he's going to sprinkle the blood lavai zara, maybe Rabbi Yochanan would agree to Resh Lakish that it's a kosher animal. Tzricha, that's why we need both. So, therefore, we have this machlokes between Rabbi Yochanan and Resh Lakish. Again, the case is a beautiful case. Two cases. One case is a guy shechts an animal, a chulin animal, and he's thinking that I'm going to sprinkle the blood lavai zara. He didn't do it yet. Rabbi Yochanan says it's a pasula carbon. It's a pasula animal. You can't eat it. It's like an avoid zara animal. Resh Lakish goes the other direction and says it's totally permitted to eat. So Moshev Rav Sheshes asked the question. Omar Rav Yosi says, Kal v'choyma hadvar ma b'makom shemach shavas peselas b'mikdashim ein hakol hoylech echel achar oived makom she'ein machshava peselas b'chulin ein edin shleihei hakol hoylech ela achar shoichet. Now Rabbi Yosi said in our Mishnah that just like in the Beis Hamikdash, right, we say you only look at the person doing the service. The owner cannot passel a carbon. So also everywhere else, the owner cannot invalidate the shechita. So what makes the Beis Hamikdash more stricter is because machshava passels by the Beis Hamikdash, and a thought will not passel by a regular animal. So the Gemara says that makes no sense. My ein machshava peselas b'chulim. What does it mean that a machshava will not invalidate a regular animal? You can't invalidate an animal. Anytime you slaughter, if you're actually slaughtering and saying the slaughtering is for avodah zara, and so you're having a bad thought, how would that be possible? The Torah says that if you do that, the animal is usher. So we do see a bad thought can invalidate your animal. Pshita, what he's saying is, what Rabbi Yossi meant to say is, me'al avoida la'avoida, going from one service to another service. V'hochi kaman, this is what Rabbi Yossi said. Ma b'mokam shemach sheves pesalos b'mikdosh me'avoida la'avoida, ein hakoel hoylech echel elo achar oived. By pigel, which is by kotchim, you could invalidate from one service to the other service. If you think a bad thought by the shechita that you're going to sprinkle the blood chutz lizmanei, that's a pigel thought, but only who can have that bad thought? The person doing the service himself, the shochet. But in a case where that wouldn't work by chulin, you don't go ma'avoida lavoida when it's a regular animal. Only the service that you're doing, but a bad thought about a future service is not going to invalidate the animal. We should only pay attention to the one that's doing the slaughtering, the one that's doing the service, and not the owner. But that's basically the way the Gemara understands Rav Yossi right now, is he's saying that inside the Beis Hamikdash, if you have a bad passing thought, let's say you have a thought while you're shechting a carbon chatas lishma, and you're going to sprinkle the blood shloi lishma. So according to Rabbi Yossi, that already invalidates the carbon. So that's a question against Resh Lakish. Resh Lakish says, "Ponim kasher Resh Lakish." That is inside the Beis Hamikdash is against Resh Lakish. Resh Lakish says if you did that, the carbon is kosher. And here Rabbi Yossi is basically trying to say the carbon is not kosher. Chutz, and then Rabbi Yossi says outside the Beis Hamikdash we don't passel mi'avoida la'avoida, which means if I shech a regular animal and I'm thinking that I'm going to sprinkle the blood for avodah zara, According to Rabbi Yossi, it would not. That's what makes outside the Beis Hamikdash more lenient than inside the Beis Hamikdash, where we will not pass them al avoida lavoida. So this is kashil Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan said that outside the Beis Hamikdash, if you shecht an animal, thinking that you're just going to sprinkle the blood to avodah zara, it invalidates the animal. You can't eat it. So the Gemara says like this: Bishlam upon like kasha. Regarding inside the Beis Hamikdash, that's not difficult against the Beis Shlakish, even though Rabbi Yossi is basically saying that if you shecht a chatas lishma, thinking you're going to sprinkle the blood shaloi lishma, it's possible. Rabbi Shlakish said it's kosher. Rabbi Shlakish changed his mind. One place is before he heard Rabbi Yochanan teaching you us the Mishnah. Before he heard the Mishnah from Rabbi Yochanan, he said it's kosher. It's a good carbon. And after he heard Rabbi Yochanan teach this Mishnah, he changed his mind. Ella, so he agrees to Rabbi Yochanan that it would be an invalid carbon if you shecht a chatas lishma, thinking that you're going to sprinkle the blood shloi lishma. Ella chutz kasher Rabbi Yochanan, but the outside the Beis Hamikdash, it's difficult against Rabbi Yochanan. So Rabbi Yochanan said that outside the Beis Hamikdash, if you shecht an animal thinking you're going to sprinkle the blood l'avodah zara, Rabbi Yochanan said it's already an avodah zara animal, and Rabbi Yossi says no. And says the Gemara, "Hu moisav lo hu mafarkla." Rabbi Yochanan asked the question, and he's going to answer. Oh, the one that asked the question is going to give you the answer to the question. So the one that asked the question, let's see who asked the question. Rav Sheshes. Rav Sheshes gave the teretz on behalf of Rabbi Yochanan. This is what he meant to say, is that Rabbi Yossi agrees, b'chutz, you could pass on avoida lavoida, but there's only two avoidas you do b'chutz, shechting and sprinkling. There's no such a thing of pigel could be by any one of the four types of service: shchita, Kabbalah, Halacha, and Zrika. All those four services can invalidate a pigel thought. What you're going to do in the future invalidates the carbon. That's by pigel. But in a place where the thought cannot invalidate a animal, when you're dealing with a plain non hegdishtige animal, and only by two of the services, shchita and zrika. By shchita and zrika, if you think a bad thought during the shchita that you're going to do avodah zara, or during the shchita you're thinking about the zrika, there, yes, it would invalidate, but you only have two chances to do it. So so certainly everything should go after the owner of the animal. Bottom line is, we remain with Rabbi Yochanan's opinion. And here, the Gemara is going to bring a brisa. Tanya kavosi de Rabbi Yochanan. We have a clear brisa that says what Rabbi Yochanan said. Hashoichet as a behemo. Someone shechts an animal. Lizrek dama l'avodah zara. And he's thinking that I'm going to sprinkle the blood for avodah zara. Or I'm going to offer up the fats for avodah zara. He didn't do it yet. We review it. We view this as an avodah zara carbon. As an avodah zara animal, you can't eat it. So it's not like Rish Lakish. Now, the brisa says something interesting, and we're going to try to explain this part of the brisa. Let's say you shechted the animal, okay, and then you said, then the let's say the Jew shechted the animal, and let's say a Jew shechts an animal, and then he thinks and says, "Oh, I shechted it for avodah zara." What do you do with that animal? When he was shechting it, he didn't say anything. You hired a sheichet to shecht an animal. He didn't say anything. Then after he shechted the animal, he said, "By the way, I was thinking of avodah zara." In Kesari, they had this story. They could not find a solution to say it's aser, to say it's permitted. So Omar Rav Chizda explained. They didn't want to say it's aser because the Rabbanan said that that you have to have that as long as you didn't have the shechita saying that you were thinking an avodah zarah thought, it's kosher. Loy heter, but they didn't want to say um, the loy heter. They didn't want to say that it's permitted because of the honor of Rabbi Eliezer, who said that if you think an avodah zarah thought, you invalidate the carbon. So they didn't want to say it's aser, and they didn't want to say it's permitted. So the Gemara says, Mimai, how do I know that that's the reason why they didn't want to say anything about this animal? Dilma, ad kan kamar rabbanan hasam. The rabbanan didn't say in our Mishnah that it's permitted. Ela de lashmane del chashiv. We didn't hear anything that the person had in mind that it should be an avodah zarah carbon, right? Let's say the owner didn't say it's an avodah zarah, like the owner, the goy didn't say it's for avodah zarah, so Rabbanan said, okay, it's permitted. Aval hacha, but over here, the shemana de chashiv, we heard that the owner of the animal says that he meant that he wanted this animal to be slaughtered for avodah zarah. He's telling us ex post facto after the animal shechted. Oh, by the way, I was hoping that this would be an avodah zarah animal. So al that the end proved what he had in mind in the beginning, and therefore that proved that he was thinking an avodah zarah thought. He was thinking an avodah zarah thought, and therefore even the Rabbana would agree in this case. A guy who owns an animal, he shechted the animal, right? And then he says, "Oh, by the way, I shechted it for avodah zarah." Even the Rabbana would say it's aser. Iname, or you could say the opposite. Ad kan like kamal Rab Lawson hasam. Over there, you could say gabe goy. A guy who Rab Laza says, even if a guy doesn't say anything, the animal is aser. The stam machshavas goy l'avodah zarah, because a guy is always thinking about avodah zarah. So you can be for sure that when the Jew is shechting the guy's animal, the guy is thinking of avodah zarah. Alva Yisrael, a Jew who owns an animal, right? And he shechted it normally. And then he says, oh, by the way, I was thinking of avodah zarah. So maybe he's just showing off, but a Jew was not, he didn't really have that thought in the very beginning. We don't say that the end proves the beginning. We don't say that. That just because he said that at the end, that proves that while he was shechting, he was thinking that thought. So again, why didn't they say that it's permitted? Why did they say it's permitted? Because you could even say, you could say the Rabbanan say it's permitted, or you could even say Rabbi Lezer says it's permitted, because you don't say when somebody announces something at the end, that doesn't mean he had that in mind in the beginning. We don't say that. Ella, Amma Rav Shesby, Le Amru Bo Heter, they didn't want to say Heter, Mishum Kaboidoi, the Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, because of the honor of Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. Which means we're going to prove that Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says something. That if a guy says something at the end, and we can figure it out that he's telling the truth, that indicates that he had that thought in the beginning. And the Gemara is going to go like, we'll just do another two more lines and we'll start. Another minute. Hey, Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. Which Rav Shimon ben Gamliel are we talking about? Rav Shimon ben Gamliel de Gittin. Are we talking about Rav Shimon ben Gamliel of Masechta Gittin the Tanan? We learned in the Mishnah. Habori Sha'amar, a healthy man says, Kisvi get lishti, write a get for my wife. Rotza l'sachik ba. It could be that he's trying to fool around with his wife, say, oh, I'm going to write you a get so that you don't fall to Yibin. But look at the story. A person who is a healthy person said, write a get for my wife. So, and then he went up to the roof and he died. Fell off the roof. If the wind pushed him off, then he didn't mean to die, so it's not a get. But if he jumped off the roof, so then he looked like he was very serious when he said, write a get for my wife. So the Gemara says, Vavina ba Maisa Lister. The story contradicts what you say. You first start off says, if someone writes a get, says, Kisu get lishti, don't take him seriously. So that we have to say like this, Suri Mechasra Vahachikatani, that there's something missing in this Mishnah. And this is what he says. If he says something, if something in the end proves that he had this in mind in the beginning, hareza get, that's a get. And there's a story about a healthy person, Sha'amar, who said, Kisvaget li'ishti, write a get for my wife. And he went up to the roof and died. If he fell by himself, that means he jumped off the roof, hareza get. So what do you see? It proves that because he was falling off, he jumped off the roof. It proves that when he said kisveget ishti, he wasn't joking around. He meant it. So the meruach techachti, but if the wind threw him off the roof, ain't a get. So we see from here, and that's the bottom, and this is where we'll end. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says that if you have some indication at the end of what he meant in the beginning, we take that seriously. So since he jumped off the roof, it proved to us that when he said, write a get for my wife, even though he didn't say, give it to my wife, we take him seriously because that's what he meant seriously. The end proved that he was serious in the beginning. So same thing over here. If a guy shechted an animal, and he was quiet, a Jew shechted an animal, then he says, oh, I meant for Avodah Zarah, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel would say that that animal is also to eat. Even though you can say, oh, maybe he's just saying it now, but he's saying it now that to prove that that's what he meant all the way in the beginning, and therefore the animal will be usher to eat. And therefore they didn't want to permit this animal in Kesari because of Reb Shimon ben Gamliel's opinion that it's not permitted to eat. Okay, we're going to stop over here.
Okay, thank you.